Welcome to the Expansive Astrology podcast, where we look at using astrology beyond the tropes and horoscopes to tune into the natural forces around us and within us, honoring our true nature to craft our future. I'm your host, Melissa, the Self-Care Witch, and I'm here to help you meet your magic. Without further ado, let's begin this week's episode with a tarot reading for the collective. Hi, welcome back. It's episode 18, and today we are continuing to discuss the invitations of Virgo season and the gifts of Virgo energy and how we can best empower ourselves this season. This week's episode is about using Virgo's gift of analysis, critical attention to detail, and evaluation and refinement. We're going to be really deeply looking at our routines, what we've been engaging with, and using Virgo's invitations and Virgo energy to refine our routines and really refine how we're showing up for ourselves. Virgo is the 6th season, so we're halfway through the astrological year. What a perfect time to kind of recenter, reorganize, refine our routines. And this week, Mercury goes retrograde and we have a full moon. So I'm excited to see what the cards have for us. First things first, collective tarot reading. As always, take what you need and leave the rest. Some of this might really resonate for you. Some of it might not really be hitting today, but stay open to seeing what might come up for you over the coming week. And trust your own understanding of the cards while also staying open to my interpretation. This is the Soul Check-In Spread by Lindsay Mack, applied to the collective. I really like it. So it's a 4-card spread, starting from the beginning, shall we? First up, present for us is the 4 of Swords. And that's supported by the 7 of Swords. Lots of swords tells me lots of brain chemistry, lots of narratives and thoughts. And with the Suit of Swords, we're learning how to have a brain in a way that is actually helpful and a little more easeful, possibly. We're learning how to have a brain that is aligned with and on board with our bigger purpose. It's online with and supporting our expansion rather than just keeping us contracted and small and safe and the same. The brain is an expert at doing those things. But through the Suit of Swords, through a healing journey, through soul expansion, we're learning how to have a brain in a way that is helpful. How to deal with a brain that gets all contracted and scared and over analytical. I love these cards for this week because this week in Expansive Astrology, with Virgo's help, we're learning how to be analytical and critical of ourselves and how we're showing up in a way that's useful, in a way that's helpful and gentle, and not overcritical. That's not abusive to ourselves. And that's what we're learning throughout the Suit of Swords too, is how to be in our brain, how to have a brain in a way that is useful. So with the 4, man, okay, I always say this is episode 18. I've pulled the 4 of Swords a number of times in these 18 episodes. I don't know how many times, but several times. It's interesting to me. It's a beautiful message. It's such an important thing to learn. So what is it, Melissa? In the 4 of Swords, we're learning how to have a brain, how to have thoughts, how to be with our thoughts, and not necessarily take every invitation that the brain brings us into. The Four of Swords helps us look at the swords to the face. I always say we see in the card a person resting, they're laying down. And there's three swords seemingly up on the wall, facing them, facing downward at them. So it's like the swords to the face. This person is with the swords, and then there's another sword laying underneath the person, maybe underneath the bed, or I don't know. It's kind of weird imagery. But this card helps us learn to find rest in our swords, to find rest and boundaries. All of the four cards, there's kind of a boundary theme that goes on. So learning how to have boundaries in and with our brain, learning how to have thoughts or beliefs or fears or narratives, and how to look at these things, how to really be with them and not necessarily believe them or make any moves off of what the brain is saying. And this can look a few different ways. Sometimes this means when our brain is saying, you're not doing enough, you should be doing more, you don't deserve rest, work, change, be more. Not necessarily believing all of those things, not necessarily taking those invitations and finding the time and the permission to rest anyway. Or vice versa. When our brain really just wants us to be in bed, there's a time for that. And there's a time to not take that invitation, not take the brain's invitation to isolate in a little cave in our bed and not see the light of day and not care for our personal hygiene, not keep our appointments and our social appointments. If the brain is bringing you into those invitations, again, there's room for that in life. Sometimes that is just kind of needed, and sometimes that's healthy and helpful. And then there really comes a time where it's time to, get out of that, get out of the brain, get out of bed and into the sunshine, or, touch grass, as they may say. So stay open to what this might mean for you. What might the Four of Swords be trying to reveal to you this week, where we're not suppressing anything, we're not bypassing anything. It is swords to the face. You're going to get sick of me saying that if this card keeps coming up week after week. But learning what it is to choose what we do with that. The idea of responding rather than reacting. The idea of not necessarily believing everything that the brain tells us. Now, this being supported by the Seven of Swords, I kind of love. I really love the message in the Seven of Swords. In this Pamela Coleman Smith illustration, we see a person with their arms are full of 5 giant shiny swords. Their body is moving away. They're leaving, and yet their head can't help but look back at 2 swords, as if the person is wondering, should I go get those swords too? Can I fit those swords in my arms also? A lot of people read this card as a card of deceit, as though the person is stealing these swords and sneaking away. Soul Tarot really brings it a little further than that, a little deeper than that, with peace and love to that interpretation. What makes more sense to me is kind of a reminder. Anytime I pull this card, it's oh, darling, turn your head and be with what is already in your hands. It's kind of oh, darling, turn your head and keep going. You don't need anything else. You don't need those other swords. You have plenty of swords already. This card reminds me that if I did need those other two swords, I trust that they will appear in my path when I have more space for them. I don't have to turn my head and away from what I already have and where I'm going. I don't have to turn my head and wonder if those swords are meant to come with me. I can trust that if they're meant to come with me, they'll find their way into my arms. They'll find their way into my path. Lindsay Mack kind of describes this as like a mini lovers card, where she describes the lovers as like a reclamation, a learning to provide for ourselves and feel whole for ourselves, without seeking any external thing to validate us or make us feel whole. Kind of a similar vibe in the Seven of Swords, where we are just focused on where we are and what we have, and reclaiming a sense of fullness and wholeness and worthiness, and trusting that what's meant to come to us will come to us. I like how the Four of Swords almost is encouraging us to like emphasize that Seven of Swords message, if that makes sense. Having the two together just feels like a really like a much louder call, a much louder invitation for us to like um get a handle on our automatic thoughts, get a handle on our internal narratives. These two together are reminding us that we are enough, we have enough, we don't have to believe our brain if it tells us anything different. And then um, also just considering the general theme of this season in Virgo, where we're really working with divine timing and trusting divine timing and being present with where we are. That feels important with these two as well. Now, our lesson for the week is the Judgment card. The Judgment card being the second to last in the major arcana. It's a very big, very, I don't know, I want to say elaborate, I guess. I don't know why. It's a very intense experience, energy. And, to be transparent with you, I'm not even 30, y'all. So, I don't have a ton of experience with the Judgment card in my personal world. And so I'm just being very honest with you. This is the one card that when I pull it, I'm like, oh shit. What do you mean? This literally is the one card in all of the majors that I don't have a little write up in my phone for. It's like this is the card that is elusive for me. And when I pulled it, I had a ego and a brain impulse to put it back and choose a different one for the lesson. But my I can't. Something else in me won't allow me to do that, because these tarot spreads mean a lot to me, and I want them to be honest for you every single time. And anyway, here's what I do know about the Judgment card. This is the last card before the World card, before the final card of the Fool's Journey. Right, so this is the last card before that like sense of like ascension or graduation or completion, some sort of ending. This is the card. This is like the final push before we get there. So in the Judgment card, we have an invitation to look at anything else that's lingering, anything else that's like getting in our way of meeting that completion, that end, that like transcendence, if you will. Not that I think I pulled the World card last week, and and described that it doesn't necessarily mean enlightenment every time we pull the World card, but this is kind of just the theme of the Judgment card is we are being clearly called. We are being invited to really look at what no, I don't know what. You tell me. What is being made clear to you? What is being made really clear to you? What do you need to look at and like come to terms with and like reckon with in order to truly like move into whatever the next thing is? This card is ruled by Pluto, which rules Scorpio. So there's a regeneration in this card. There's like a death and a rebirth in this card. That's why the word reckoning always comes up pretty strongly for me. Anytime I do pull this card, it's kind of an uncovering. It's kind of a waking up. It's um really being with what actually exists, not what we wish existed, not what we thought, not what we've been told our whole lives, but truly looking at the truth, seeing the truth, waking up, taking off the blindfold, and like listening to what the truth of the matter is. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't know everything there is to know about the judgment card, not even close. Like that's even a silly phrase to me. Like it's ridiculous. But being in that lesson position in the spread and considering that we have all of those sword cards present for us, we might have an opportunity to like look at something in a new way or like really not to compare the spread to the expansive astrology of the week again, but like the expansive astrology of the week is to look at what we've been engaging with, do kind of a sacredly, effectively, gently, kind, ruthless evaluation of how we've been showing up. And I feel like maybe that's kind of what judgment is all about, is like we're being shown the thing. Like what needs to be made clear to us is gonna be made clear to us. And then we have all of these sword cards kind of assisting our brain through that, and then our anchor for the week is the Empress. Thank goodness. So, in the midst of all of that work, which kind of sounds a little bit yikes, our anchor is the Empress. Anchoring in with some Taurus energy, the key word for the Empress is receiving. How can we open ourselves up to cultivating pleasure, to receiving the medicine and the beauty and all of the juice and the nutrients that is accessible to us where we are right now, even in the most simple ways? The Empress knows how to make every sip of water, every piece of fruit, every shower, an indulgence, sensual, replenishing, like orgasmic experience. Anchoring in with the Empress as we refine our routines and consider how we want to show up for the next 6 seasons, for the last half of the astrological year. Anchoring in with the Empress as we do this reckoning, this waking up, receiving, nurturing, caretaking in an expert way. That's our spread this week. I hope you always feel welcome to let me know what comes up for you, what resonates for you. I hope this feels useful for you. If nothing else, an anchor of the Empress. Love that. I'll take that any day. Can we get that more than we get the Four of Swords? Although the Four of Swords is like a really like beautiful, juicy message too, but it's not as pretty as the Empress. Let's move into the expansive astrology for the week. We're talking Virgo. We're talking routine. Let's go. Last week, the Hermit helped us explore how we can find refuge within ourselves in the present moment, in the here and now. This week, we're working with finding new ways to work with what is present, to find ways to align ourselves with our life's work, with our soul purpose within the day to day by being with the day to day. One of Virgo's superpowers is its ability to analyze. So we're going to really tap into that and hone in on that this season. Virgo is here to live life fully and to analyze and understand their experiences and to use it to help. Virgo is also an excellent and meticulous caretaker. Virgo can also be a little neurotic. So here's your reminder. Having unrealistic expectations for ourselves is not caretaking. Putting excessive pressure on ourselves to be perfect or to be more or different than what we are and what we're truly capable of, that's not caretaking. That's not an empowered, useful expression of our ability to analyze. Let's learn how to have an empowered and useful expression of our ability to analyze, shall we? We're going to be experimenting with embracing some meticulous caretaking of ourselves and see how that goes. Let's turn up the notch on our caretaking of ourselves, our tending to our roots, and then we grow from there, right? And then we rise from there. Root to rise. They say it in yoga a lot. Root to rise. A reminder that it all starts with where we are. And Virgo is mutable earth. Virgo is all about rooting down, being with the earth and mutating it. I don't think that's what mutable means. Mutate, mutant. But that's what Virgo does. That's what we're working on this week. It's being with what is, and like refining that, moving that, doing something with that. Virgo is ruled by Mercury, which rules the magician. We have a connection with the magician this season, an invitation to alchemize what we have and where we are. Alchemize the soil, the ground where we stand, so that our roots can dig in more fully into healthier soil, a healthier, firmer foundation, a solid foundation from which we can move for the next 6 months. The earth element encompasses all things material and earthly. The way we make and spend our money, the way we spend our time, the way we treat our bodies and our physical possessions. Suit of Pentacles, the garden that we're growing. We're taking a deep look at all of these things this week. And by doing this, by zooming into the day-to-day, we should develop a more solid sense of purpose. I mentioned in the beginning of Virgo season that sometimes Virgo can have a difficulty with knowing when or how to zoom in versus out. Let me tell you, we're zooming in this week. We're going to zoom in this week, analyze our roots, analyze our day-to-day, and get really intentional with how we're spending our time. Repeat after me. I am divinely compensated when I care for myself. Caring for myself in the here and now is the most important thing I can do. Make these ideas pillars you live by. Like, codes programmed into your system. I am divinely compensated when I care for myself. What does divinely compensated mean? When I say that, I don't just mean in terms of like cash or money, right? It means having trust that the best thing you can do is care for yourself, knowing that it all begins from there and that you value caring for yourself. You know that caring for yourself is a valuable use of your time and that the universe will reward or compensate you for doing so. So, whether that means physical money or more energy and wellness to make more money, or more creativity to think of new ways to feel good, you don't know how divine compensation will look. You don't need to know how divine compensation will look. You just know that you will be divinely compensated for treating yourself with care. That it is a worthy investment, that doing so will pay off in some way. So, here's my proposal for you this week. Here's my invitation for you. Here's the work that I'm inviting you to experiment with and try this week. Step 1, objective evaluation. It's the time of the year for a review. It's time to sit down with our internal board of directors and have our quarterly evaluation. We're having a chat with our inner president of the board, our inner secretary, our inner treasurer, our public relations, etc. But first, to support us in doing that, let me introduce you to non-judgmental stance, a DBT skill that helps us adopt true objectivity, which helps set us up for radical acceptance of where we are and how we are. It helps make all of this a little easier. Non-judgmental stance is exactly that. It's letting go of the judgments of the things we notice. This means noticing what is happening without placing judgments, without evaluating the thing, which gives us an opportunity to observe things in a different way. This is a practice of withholding judgments about what a thing means and simply observing it, noting it, letting it be. So while we're having this board of directors meeting and doing our review of the state of your life and how you're showing up, do so with great care. Not sticking to your New Year's resolutions. That doesn't have to mean anything. Do you self-medicate with food or alcohol or anything else? That doesn't have to mean anything. Your budget isn't what you intended it to be. Don't let that mean anything. Just observe. Just look at it. Shine your light on it. Just observe. Placing meaning on these things isn't actually all that useful. And we kind of do it automatically. We say things like, my house is a mess, so it means I'm out of control of my life. Or I haven't been able to maintain my budget, so it means I'm going to be poor forever. It's important. We're just looking at where you are. So don't let your brain make any meaning about what that means. That was redundant. Where that means you're gonna be, what it means you're gonna be, or where you're going. Right? We're just looking at where you are. Don't let your brain fill in any blanks about what that means what that must mean about your character or what that must mean about your future. Non-judgmental, objective evaluation. And just a quick little note before we continue with this. Be aware of toxic productivity. Toxic productivity, our cultural attitude that we must be doing something productive in order for our time to be worth it. Toxic productivity is very common in my culture. So I want you to be very aware of your relationship with productivity before we move forward with this, right? Remember, part of the work of this season lies in balance and kind of adjusting our standards. We have to balance work and pleasure to be healthy. Both are important and technically both are productive. So check the toxic productivity at the door. And let's return to step one, your evaluation. Have you ever heard the phrase, how you do one thing is how you do everything? I know I've brought it up before, and every time I sit with it, there's just a bit of a yikes that happens for me. Um, how does it land for you? Because I remember when I first heard that, I immediately thought of all the quote unquote worst, like most careless and lazy moments I've ever had. The times I've half-assed things or neglected important things or flew by the seat of my pants to complete things. Or I think the first time I heard that, I was smoking a cigarette, which I didn't like. I didn't want to be doing. And, I was standing there smoking the cigarette and I'm like, shit, if how I do one thing is how I do everything, what does this mean? It's just, it's always a little bitter medicine. How you do one thing is how you do everything. So don't let yourself get stuck in the bitterness of that medicine. Let it be useful, right? How would you like to be showing up? How do you do things? And do you need to adjust the standards that you have set for yourself? This is what this week, this is what Virgo, this is what this season is here to help us through. So let's take a closer look with our board of directors. One day I will make Expansive Astrology into like a book or a journal or a planner of some sort, and I will like lay this all out for you. But until then, create for yourself a bit of a list of all the areas of your life, or consider for yourself your own internal board of directors. If you had a CEO and a treasurer and I don't know, medical department and a hygiene department and a budget, no, I already said that, and a party planning committee. And bring your inner child to the table as well. All these different little parts of you that operate or help you operate. Account for all of those parts of you. Account for all the different like pieces and parts of your life. Let's kind of make a couple lists. Let's really break things down, shine a light on all the things. Your time, how you use your time, how you treat your time. Your body, how you treat your body, including rest and pleasure, exercise, nutrition, medicine and vitamins, massages and doctor's appointments, hair brushing and showering. How are you treating your body? Looking at your work. Are you trudging through it? Bad shift after bad shift after bad shift after bad shift? What are we going to do about it? Your play. Do you have hobbies? Do you prioritize enjoyment? Do you play every day? Creativity, hobbies, just for the sake of play. Looking at your cognitive health. Do you read? Creativity fits here too. Do you learn things for fun outside of scrolling Twitter, When's the last time you read a book or went to the library or, I don't know, learned a new board game, played an instrument, learned anything new? When's the last time you learned something new? My goodness. Make sure you're learning something new all the time. There's so much to know. Looking at your spiritual health, including how you engage with rest and breaks. Are you connected with your spirituality, with whatever that means for you? Your finances, your budget, accounting for your social relationships. Are your relationships fulfilling? Is there a healthy balance of give and take? Now, also, let me just say, this work is divinely preparing us for Libra season, where those are some of the themes: balance and relationships, friendship. So those are just some of my suggestions that I kind of like to audit. Make sure to add, and actually, now that I think I made this list before I became a mama, so I might just add like um, my parenthood, and then there could even be a category for my marriage. And then thinking of that board meeting with all these different parts of me, there's definitely like Mama Melissa and wife Melissa who can kind of come up to the table and help me with this sacred analysis, help me with evaluating where I am and what I can refine, how I can show up a little bit better. That's where we're kind of entering into step 2 for the work this week. Brainstorm ideas for a really complete, holistic self-care plan. Now, stay open to looking at this through a Virgo lens. We're using Virgo's brilliant brain to assist us in rethinking and restructuring how we do things. Using all of those categories that I just listed, breaking those down into subcategories of daily, weekly, monthly. We're looking at establishing self-tending in each and every category on a regular basis. So consider for yourself, what can you commit to doing for yourself that will be supportive of your physical health on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, and on a monthly basis? How can you caretake your work life on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis? What can you do in terms of your financial health on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis? Your parenthood, daily, weekly, monthly. Your partnership or marriage or your singlehood. Is that a word? How can you caretake your heart daily, weekly, and monthly? All of the things, daily, weekly, monthly. It's meticulous. That's kind of the point. We're really zooming in this week and getting so serious with taking care of ourselves. And I kind of want you to forget about how practical this like self-care plan, this list that I'm asking you to meticulously break down and make. I don't care if it's practical. Honestly, I kind of just want you to make this. Act as though you can center all of your time and all of your energy into these self-care practices while you write this. I want you to kind of like let go of the brain, let go of practicality, let go of all of the millions of other obligations you have and all of the millions of other things that you are supposed to tend to and do um, daily, weekly, and monthly. And just kind of sit with your board of directors and consider, like, in the most outrageous ways, in the most like ideal utopian type of world, if you could have your life filled with nothing but self-tending and self-care, kind of dream really big and a little outrageously when you create this self-care plan. We're getting really serious about self-tending, committing to it like it's your full-time job, because it kind of is. And the bigger we can dream while we do this like board meeting, reevaluation, refining work, the more expansive we can like picture it and write it down and explore it. I feel like it's not about setting unrealistic expectations, which we're going to talk about perfectionism next week, but rather about like setting a very expanded, expansive standard for ourselves that we can like strive to hit. It's not about being unrealistic or setting outrageous expectations that, like, you might look at this thing that might feel really unrealistic, but rather it should serve as like a really expansive, beautiful, juicy menu of self care and self tending practices or activities that you can choose to engage in when you do have the time, and how it will fit into your life as it currently stands. So put the brain on standby. Let's just get really expansive as we do this evaluation and this writing. And because, unlike what we may like to think of self care, or rather, unlike what capitalism has fucking done to self care, this isn't just all bubble baths and massages and journaling and underwear dance parties, although those should all be a part of it too. This is also about taking our medications, calling the doctor, submitting the paperwork, voting, and all of the other horrible, boring, unfun things that come with life on earth as an adult human. uh, this is a really holistic self-care plan, meaning it's comprehensive, it's complete, it hits every area. And it also means throwing away anything that isn't helpful, which leads us to step 3: establishing routines. Oh, we already have routines. Whether they're intentional and helpful or not, they're there. And hopefully, you've started to non judgmentally become aware of your routines already. There's a ton of research in favor of routine. Some say having routines helps us manage symptoms of anxiety and insomnia, and even bipolar disorder and ADHD. Routine has also been found to help build confidence over time and help with stress management, because you're getting things done and taking care of yourself on a regular basis. Routines can also be really helpful for people who struggle with hypervigilance or PTSD or CPTSD. They can help provide some predictability in a really unpredictable world, right? So, being intentional with our routines is really important. And let me remind you again, next week is about perfectionism. So, hang in there. Don't hold yourself to a perfectionist standard. And take this very seriously. Like I said, we're treating self care, self tending, self nurturing like it is our full time job. Take it very seriously and don't be too rigid about it. Experiment with establishing routines for yourself and see if it makes a difference in things like how you feel, how you sleep, how embodied and aligned you feel. your relationship with yourself in general, your alignment with your higher self in general. So here are some ways to set yourself up for success in establishing routine. After we've made this kind of outrageous, totally expansive self-care plan or menu, let's set ourselves up for success in actually establishing a routine around those things. First of all, having realistic expectations for ourselves. I'm going to keep mentioning this during Virgo. Keeping it realistic, keeping it kind, keeping it kind of fluid, like allowing ourselves to be fluid. Loosen up a little bit, Virgo. Celebrate when you do well. Every little thing. Don't be shy about it either. Don't be stingy about celebrating yourself. See, and our anchor this week is the Empress. You better listen. Celebrate yourself. When you stick to a routine, even if it's quote unquote basic, or even if it's just the things that I'm supposed to should be doing, it's all the basic shit that everybody's supposed to do. Like, I don't know, we minimize these things all the time. But if you feed yourself every day and wake up for work on time, and you keep your child alive every day, and you take care of your teeth every day, yeah, maybe those things are basic and they're what you're supposed to do, and la, la, da, da, da. And don't miss an opportunity to celebrate yourself for doing those things. That's not easy. Maybe they're simple. Maybe some of those things are simple. Maybe you don't need to hear this. And if you don't, that's fine. But the people who do need to hear this really need to hear this. You deserve to celebrate yourself for doing even those basic things, for having an empty sink after it's been full for a week. Like, whatever, even whatever it is, celebrate yourself. Don't ever miss an opportunity to celebrate yourself, even if it seems simple or small. There's no harm in doing that. And if there's a part of your brain that says, well, but if I celebrate myself for the simple things, then I won't work hard for the hard things. Is that true? Is it really true? Or does it have to be true? Like, could you experiment with being really gentle with yourself, really kind with yourself, celebrating yourself for even the basic, simple things, the things that you think are not worth celebrating? Like, what if you did do that? Would it really, are you sure that it would make you like complacent or make you not strive for more or better? Can you see? Are you willing to try and experiment and see? Because I have a hunch that actually celebrating yourself and doing all of that will actually encourage you to be even better. Just a hunch. And I know that not everybody operates that way. So I'm open to it, but not really. I said that and I'm sitting here like, I don't know. Even if somebody told me like, no, I don't operate that way, Melissa, it won't work for me, I would be really hard pressed to be like, but have you tried it? Have you really tried it? I don't know. Anyway, how much longer can I harp on the importance of celebrating yourself? um, Another tip for like setting yourself up for success in sticking to a routine is like shifting the narrative about these things. Instead of using the words like to do, my to-do list, or I have to do these things, even just using the words I get to do these things. The language we use, the narrative we use, it can kind of like serve as like a brain hack or a life hack when we say, I get to go to the doctor, I get to go to therapy, I get to take a shower. Kind of helps. It can kind of help. I get to go fill my prescription. I don't know, it can be subtle and it can be useful. Making a get to list rather than a to do list. It can be helpful. Take this or leave it, but something that has helped for me in the past, it's not really how I operate anymore. I kind of am a little more fluid in my routines these days, but I used to have an admin day. And it was usually the day before my first work day. I would have an admin day, and that was the day that I made the phone calls, paid the bills, answered the emails, did the vacuum. I did like everything on that day. It was a lot. So like I said, this might not work for everybody, but it really worked for me for a time. It helped me manage my stress on the other 6 days of the week. I knew that come, I think it was like Sundays or Mondays, come Monday, I would be taking care of all of it. And that it was just really useful for me, and it helped to set me up for my work week where I could get off of work and instead of paying a bill, answering an email, cleaning and vacuuming the stairs or whatever, cleaning the litter box, I don't know, that would be done already, and I could focus my energy and time elsewhere. So an admin day can be really useful. Similarly, scheduling time to worry. I've heard this recommended a lot, and it can be really useful, kind of for the same reason as that admin day. If you schedule that from 7:30 to 8 after the kiddos are in bed and while you load the dishwasher, that is your designated time to worry. Maybe that's your designated time to like vent to your partner or stress about all of the things. Um, it might help for the other 23 hours of the day. Uh, you get to kind of compartmentalize the anxiety and the worry. Now, this for me is not foolproof, but it can really be useful. I've heard it suggested a million times, like kind of saving your worry time for a specific pocket of time. Another little tip: use fun names for your to-do lists and your routines. Like what I have in my phone is embodied goddess morning routine. And I have written down with all the fun emojis, and I make it really fun and exciting and juicy for me to engage with these routines by using fun names and putting them into like fun categories. Make it fun. And then finally, make sure that you're balancing meeting your expectations with adjusting your expectations when necessary. There's a concept in DBT that we always have four options. We either like the thing, change the thing, change how we feel about the thing, or suffer. So, in terms of your routine, you can kind of apply that idea. You can either work to meet your expectations, or you can work to adjust your expectations and make it so that you are more accepting of where you are, right? Either do the work to meet your expectations or to match them, or do the work to bring your expectations to a more realistic level. And this is not about like cutting yourself so much slack that nothing ever gets done, but rather actively choosing to be proud of yourself at the end of each and every day, no matter what the day looked like. The whole goal is to reach our goals sooner, to tend our roots expertly so that we may rise up into our power, into our potential. None of that requires or includes being an asshole to yourself and holding yourself to a perfectionist standard. We'll have much more on that next week. So, in the meantime, while you do this work, hang in there and be gentle. Review, explore, and craft routines. A sacred self-care plan. Good luck. Now for this week's astrological forecast. You can find this printed in the show notes. All of these times are in Eastern Daylight Time. And this week's astrological forecast is going to include a little discussion on Mercury retrograde, as well as a discussion on the full moon in Pisces. So let's do it. Now, I don't consider myself an astrologer, so I like to keep these brief, and I don't offer interpretations on anything that I don't know about. I don't offer any interpretations on anything that I'm not confident about. My intention for naming these for you each week is so that maybe you can plug them into your calendar and just kind of observe, notice what happens, what might unfold for you when the moon is void, of course, what might unfold for you given these different planetary transits. Just not necessarily structuring our life around these things, but rather using them to inform us and just staying open to observing how they play out for us. That said, the recommendation, the suggestion is that when the moon is void, of course, we kind of just take it easy a little bit, um, ease up on like goal directed activities and kind of engage in more passive, easeful, self-tending type activities. Again, not overly structuring our lives around this, but just kind of like using it to inspire us. The moon is void, of course, Tuesday the 6th from 5:43 p.m. until it enters Aquarius at 11:41 p.m. And then there's nothing until Thursday the 8th. The moon is void, of course, all day. Thursday the 8th from 8:34 a.m. until it enters Pisces early on the 9th at 12:42 a.m. At night on the 9th, Mercury goes retrograde. 11:38 p.m. Mercury begins its retrograde, and it will be retrograde for pretty much for the whole month of September. It goes direct, I believe, October 2nd. Now, there's a lot of noise out there about what Mercury retrograde means. And as with all things, I recommend that you stay open. Don't expect Mercury retrograde to be a bad time. Don't expect it to mean anything. Rather, I mean, okay, we're going to apply everything we just talked about in today's lesson to Mercury retrograde. Just stay open to seeing how it unfolds for you. Don't make it mean anything. Stay open to what becomes illuminated to you. Stay really present with what is unfolding for you. And that's kind of all you can do to survive Mercury retrograde. It has a really bad reputation. People blame everything and anything on Mercury being retrograde. And so I think we kind of, I don't know, I think that does a disservice to finding, my whole goal, I'm always trying to find the medicine in the thing. I'm always trying to find, the ways that we can work with these things that kind of present themselves for us. How can we work with it? How can we find medicine in it? How can we become informed by what Mercury retrograde shows us? How can we roll with it? How can we grow from it? How can we trust it and not fear it? I'm just going to read a little bit directly from something I created called a Retrograde Revival Guide that I'm not bringing around this retrograde because I don't know what it needs to be yet. I don't know if it's like a class. I don't know if it's a book. I don't know if it's a group. I don't know if it's free. I don't know if it's paid. I just don't. This retrograde is not the time for me to find out. But Mercury retrograde does happen again in December. So if all goes according to my current plan, who knows? But I would love to have Retrograde Revival Guide available however it decides it needs to be available by the next one. But in the meantime, I'm going to read to you directly from Retrograde Revival Guide. Mercury goes retrograde about 3 or 4 times per year for about 3 or 4 weeks at a time. And Mercury's impact is vast. Mercury rules all things dealing with communication, including how we think, how we communicate, how we listen, how we connect, Mercury rules the lungs and the hands, reminding us to stay connected to ourselves so that we can bring our magic outward and into the world. Mercury rules the magician. From our tone of voice to our body language to how we're engaging with our hands, Mercury has an influence on all of it. So, where Mercury falls in your chart reveals how you think, talk, and express yourself. And if you have a very Mercury heavy chart, this retrograde may impact you more notably than other people. And still, I don't think it's a thing to be feared. This event is known for all sorts of mishaps, car troubles, computer crashes, arguments, misunderstandings, unwelcome guests. And those things can totally happen during Mercury retrograde. But the key is in exploring why. The key is finding the medicine in those things. With Retrograde Revival Guide, the invitation is to take it nice and easy during this notoriously chaotic time of year. Traffic jams turn into mindfulness opportunities. Arguments become opportunities to grow closer. Challenges become chances to center in and show up more embodied and empowered. Retrograde Revival Guide is a reminder that we get to choose how we respond to any and every situation. Any mishaps that come with Mercury retrograde present an opportunity for heightened mindfulness around all things communication and expression. We can choose to take this time to tend to our spaces, our souls, and our relationships intentionally and deliberately, deeply connecting with the vision we hold of our most vibrant, aligned self. Anything and everything that doesn't align with that vision needs to get the fuck out. With peace and love, of course. Mercury goes retrograde in different signs each time and during different times of year each year. This is my first time since creating Retrograde Revival Guide that retrograde is happening during Virgo season, where the Expansive Astrology invitations for this week of Virgo season are about refining our routines and refining how we show up. And a big part of Retrograde Revival Guide is taking those 3 or 4 weeks that Mercury is retrograde and really refining how we show up. So it's almost like a double whammy that we have Mercury retrograde during Virgo season. Just a big, 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 big opportunity, major support in doing that work, in checking in with what have you been engaging with and how, and what needs to go and what needs to stay, what needs to be added in. Really big opportunities, a whole lot of support around realigning, recalibrating ourselves with our goals, realigning, recalibrating with like your highest self. I feel like I could talk about all of this for 8 more years. And I would if I could, but I can't. I feel like this episode is already kind of long. So I hope this was useful. I hope you feel prepared and equipped to do this work and like to set yourself up for success for the rest of the year. Like not only like, we're entering fall and we kind of think December is not too far away, not to freak you out, but like we're almost done with 2022. We're on like the back end of 2022, and the astrological year, which goes from Aries to Aries, so like mid-March ish. We are midway through with the astrological year, so really considering. So just a really great opportunity to kind of revisit your mood board or just your intentions, your goals, realigning, recalibrating yourself and how you're showing up. So that's a little bit about Mercury retrograde. And then Saturday the 10th is our full moon in Pisces. Early in the morning, 5:59 a.m. The full moon is here to help us bring balance and fullness and completion, like completing the story of what Virgo has been bringing. So Virgo being about earth and work and service and like refining our routines, so that we can show up in a really like soul purpose, soul guided, aligned way, so that we can show up um, as a human, as kind of like a servant of source, a servant of the soul, if that makes sense. Okay, we're getting really esoteric. We're getting really woo woo here. Okay, bear with me. But if that's what Virgo is all about, Pisces comes in to help balance that out. Pisces assists us in our deep relationship with ourself. Pisces assists us in serving ourself. I mentioned earlier in this episode, when speaking on Virgo's like superpower of like sacred analysis, Virgo's mission is to live life fully, living life to the fullest and analyzing their experiences and using that to help in some way, using that to serve, using that to become an even more expert caretaker. The mission of Pisces is similar but different, right? They're opposing one another, so there's a similar, they're on the same pole but opposite. So we're doing all this work with our board of directors and our routine and how we're interacting with the earth and alchemizing and mutable earth, right? And now we have a full moon in Pisces, where the full moon is illuminated, it's reflecting the light of the sun. So we have the full moon in Pisces, the full moon illuminating, informed by the themes of Pisces, illuminating the work that we're doing that's informed by the themes of Virgo. Pisces helping to bring in a balance, bring in a little dash of connecting with our inner world as well as the outer, refining our relationship with our inner world, as well as like that Virgo work of like literally practically what we've been doing. If you want to know more on my recommendations on how to use the full moon and the new moon, how to use the moon cycles to further this work that we're doing with Expansive Astrology, I'll see you at the next Moon Meetup. Now, here's an important note. Our next meetup is not until September 25th. We're taking a week off so that we can recalibrate the meetups to be more aligned with the actual moon phase that we're talking about. And the new moon in Libra occurs on Sunday, the 25th. So taking the week off allows us to, talk about it on that day rather than a whole week in advance. And then for the rest of 2022, this helps align our meetups with the actual astrological event much more closely. So, skipping a couple of weeks, but consider this your formal invitation to my next moon meetup, September 25th, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. We're going to be welcoming in the new moon in Libra. I'm just constantly obsessing with the ways this stuff builds on itself, how each season builds upon the other to bring us deeper and further. From this week's full moon in Pisces and then we have a new moon in Libra, and then right after that, a full moon in Aries. Mwah. Now, also on Saturday, the 10th, the moon is void of course from 8:29 p.m. until it enters Aries. On Sunday, the 11th at 2:47 a.m. And then Tuesday the 13th, which is the date of the next episode, but the moon goes void, of course, at 12:53 a.m. until it enters Taurus at 7:39 a.m. All right, my loves. That's all I have for you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening. This was a long one. I hope you enjoy it. And I hope you have a really wonderful week. Please never hesitate to connect with me in any way that you feel called. Until next time, take care. Bye. Now, before you go, let me keep your ear for just a moment. This week's episode is brought to you by www.theselfcarewitch.com, my bread and butter, where you can find more information on my current courses, offerings, and other fun ways to connect with myself and yourself. If you enjoyed this episode and you dig what I'm doing here, please subscribe to the podcast, rate it, and leave a review. It helps so much. And if you'd like to connect with me, head to theselfcarewitch.com. I'd truly love to hear from you. Until next time, take care.